Welcome to a brand new hour of CBS Sports HQ. I am Jenny Dell, and yes, it is the middle of June, but it's the most wonderful time of the year. And you want to know why that is? Well, Pete Prisco's top 100 NFL players list is officially out. It's an annual ranking of the league's best players determined by Pete's own evaluation of the player's performance, health, and potential for next season. So all week long, we're going to be dissecting Prisco's list. He's already receiving, positive notes from our producers, from our other on-air talent, some hateful messages surely coming his way. It's just part of it all. Pete Prisco's top 100 list. It's just oh so fun. I know that you love making this list. I know how much time and energy you put into it. We have the creator himself, Pete Prisco, and our resident quarterback, Danny Kanell, to look at Pete's top 100. We're going to talk about the 11 quarterbacks that made the cut. And let's start with that number one player overall, and obviously the number one player in general, Patrick Mahomes. You have him over last season's MVP in Lamar Jackson, and you got to wonder, is the reason that he's above them because neither of them can beat it when it really matters the most? And what made you put him in that position?
Well, he's the best player in the league, and if you had an open draft and everybody was draftable, he would be the number one overall pick. And that's why look, his numbers haven't been Mahomes-like numbers the last couple of seasons. And they've changed the way they play. Their defense is much better. The offensive line was an issue. He didn't have his receivers the entire year. Travis Kelce's getting old. And you add it all together, and his numbers are down. But he's still the best quarterback and the best player in the National Football League.
I agree, although I do think it's interesting. I think this is great for the league that the gap is starting to close a little bit. And the fact that you could even make a case for a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen or a Joe Burrow even potentially making that case that, hey, these guys potentially could be the face of the league. And I do agree with you because I do think if you had an open draft, you said, all right, you can pick anybody in the league. I still think Mahomes, from the totality of what he brings intangibles as far as leadership, what he brings escapability and being able to make the plays off the cuff, and then also being able to play within a system paired with Andy Reid is what makes him the clear-cut number one.
So last season's MVP, we got Josh Allen. 2 years ago, we have Lamar Jackson. Number one on your list is Patrick Mahomes. Now, when it comes to the next man on your list, we put your baby up there. We just mentioned his name, Josh Allen. You're just a big Josh Allen fan, Pete. Ranked him as the second best quarterback overall. Why is that?
Well, I think what we saw last year showed what he is. And look, he's carried that team for a couple years. And last year, he had to carry it, but he did it differently. He was much more disciplined the way he played football. And they had said that. When I was there in training camp, they said, look, he's going to cut down on his runs a little bit. He's not going to be as wild. He's going to get the ball out. This offense will be more conducive. Remember, Joe Brady came in. He changed the offense the year before. He spent the offseason really refining the offense, and he improved. And I think he's a better quarterback than he was a couple years ago in terms of playing the position, getting the ball to the guys, getting the ball out of his hands. He's progressed greatly as a passer. He's still wonderful as a guy who can get outside the pocket and create with his legs and make throws, but I think he's grown up as a quarterback.
I do too. I think he's matured a ton. He's really come into, being the franchise quarterback and one of the faces of the league. I do think it's interesting. If you wanted to make a case, I don't really have a problem with. Last year, I thought Josh Allen should have won the MVP, and I don't have a problem here with two. But I do think what is very interesting, if you asked, 32 NFL defensive coordinators, who would you least want to prepare for? Is it Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? Or if you asked players who they would least likely to play against, I do think they would choose Lamar Jackson. They would not want to face him, and they would take Josh Allen. Not that those are great options, and I think it would be pretty close. But I do think Lamar Jackson is getting tougher to defend, especially the way he can escape and what he can do with his legs is sort of another dimension.
Yeah, unless it's in the playoffs. I mean, no, I think when you go...
What gives him the edge, though, over Lamar?
Well, I think he's a better player. I mean, it's close. Don't get me wrong. It's really close, but I think he's a better player. You talk about Lamar Jackson, and by the way, he's been better in the postseason than Lamar Jackson. When you talk about Lamar Jackson, week to week, it's harder to prepare for Lamar Jackson. I'll give you that. But when you have time to prepare for Lamar Jackson, which teams have had the postseason, he hasn't been the same quarterback. I love Lamar Jackson. I think he's a great player. And he's improved greatly, by the way, as a passer. But you take everything into account. he has Derrick Henry. The guy almost rushed for 2,000 yards last year. And so I think you add that into the offense. And Lamar's part of it, the way he runs, and he can be a threat to run. But I think you add it all together, I give the slight edge to Josh Allen.
The slight edge is there.
And I was just going to follow up real quick. I do think if you could take away both of their running capabilities, where I do think Lamar Jackson is a little bit better, I think Josh Allen is tougher to defend as a pocket passer if you did not let either one of them run, which are what defenses are trying to do when you play against them.
So let's break down Lamar Jackson. He's third on your list when it comes to quarterbacks, sixth overall. Just where do you want to see him grow this season?
In the postseason.
Yeah.
It's time. This is his moment. Look, he's been great in the regular season. He has. He's been fantastic. When it comes time to do it in the postseason, that's the next step for him. And we've seen guys in their careers do that, and eventually they break through. And I think at some point he's going to break through. He's too talented a player. And, you know, all that talk about early in his career, now he loves it and lives it. And look, he's down here practicing all the time on these fields everywhere. And I think that next step for him is the postseason. Everything else, he does it. He's approved as a passer. He's a good passer. He can throw from the pocket. He can move. He can run. He's such a threat to really get outside the pocket. But the next big step for him is the postseason.
I thought one of the best offseason moves last year was bringing Derrick Henry in so it could open up running lanes for Lamar Jackson. It really opened up passing lanes as well because you have to defend that. Totally agree with you. And this is something where we are nitpicking, right? We were talking about the elite of the elite, the top few quarterbacks in the NFL, where it does become, what do you do? How do you break through? That was the narrative around Peyton Manning forever. Remember, he couldn't get past that hump, Eventually got his Super Bowl. I do think Lamar will get his, and then maybe he'll break into that upper tier because he already has 2 MVPs, which is the same amount as Patrick Mahomes' regular season. He just hasn't that Super Bowl appearance yet.
Could you see that happening this year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they'll be in the mix.
Definitely.
All
Absolutely.
right. So I don't think anyone that's watching this at home is going to argue the top 4 quarterbacks in the league. So we have Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and then Joe Burrow. You have him ranked as your 4th best quarterback out there. You think about the list that you created. That's 4 quarterbacks in the top 7 overall players in this year's whole echelon of players. It's pretty impressive. And you think about the Bengals and the money that they spent to really get this offense going. What do you expect from Joe Burrow's season?
Another big year. Look, what he can do throwing the football and the way he maneuvers the pocket, and he hasn't had the greatest offensive lines in his time there in Cincinnati, and he just knows how to step away from pressure, make throws, keep his head up. Last year, he was forced to do a lot of it because their defense was so bad at times. I think the defense will be better. That will take a little bit of the pressure off of him. I think the change to Al Golden as defensive coordinator will make the defense better, which in turn will not, they'll allow him to take a little bit of the pressure off of Joe Burrow and do everything. Because last year was phenomenal. I mean, that's the kind of season you look at the numbers and you go, wow, and then you say, well, why? Well, he had to, and he almost got him into the postseason.
He had 15 more touchdown passes than Patrick Mahomes, close to the same amount as Josh Allen had. What I worry about Joe Burrow is that he's this era's Dan Marino, which is a great compliment. Like, you know how I feel about Dan Marino. I think he's the closest thing that we've seen as a pure passer to what you saw Dan Marino do in the 80s and 90s. He's got that moxie, he's got a confidence about him, and it feels very similar. He can put the entire team on his back when things aren't great around him, when maybe you have guys out or your defense isn't playing great, and he can always give you a chance to win those games. As we saw last year, if his team was a little bit better, he would have been in that MVP conversation just from the statistical numbers that he put up. He is as good as it gets, and I do think this is a very clear-cut top 4 tier that there's not many others. There's some that are getting close. They haven't done it over time, but I think these are very clear, the top 4.
Yeah, there's the 4, and then there's
everybody
else. Drop down to the rest.
This is where your bias might come in a little bit, and I want to go to Danny on this one first. So your 5th-ranked quarterback, we have Jaden Daniels, okay? Did you, Danny, see enough from him? And you look at the rest of the quarterbacks in this league. So Pete has him above Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield, even Jalen Hurts won the Super Bowl.
I don't have a problem with it being over Jalen Hurts, just from a natural ability standpoint of what he brings to the table. The big thing he's got to do is he's got to sort of put a stamp on what he did last year, because C.J. Stroud was on a lot of these lists last year as well after an incredible rookie season. And you say this all the time, Pete, it's a fact. Now that defenses have an entire offseason to defend, they're going to play you differently. They're going to take away what you do best, and they're going to force you to improve on your weaknesses. I think he's going to do that. I love his mindset. I love what Washington has done to put players around him to continue this run. But that, to me, is the only thing left, is that he cements what he did last season, and that, C.J. Stroud was dealt with some adversity last year. He got some, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs. They had injuries around him. Got hit way more than he was before.
Line was terrible.
The sacks, the amount of hits that he took. So it was a struggle for him. Now I have to battle back. And I think what Washington wants to do is avoid that sort of sophomore setback that you saw from C.J. Stroud. And I feel pretty confident that he will back it up.
Now, where's my bias? He left Arizona State.
Yeah, he did. He did. But they're still a part of you.
Well,
I mean, you're
you were the only one. You were one of the only ones that was saying it was coming out of the draft.
Yeah,
that's your bias.
Yeah, I love the
confirmation bias.
Yes, I love them coming out of the draft, and I think he affirmed what I thought about him last year. He was really good, and I think there's going to be so much more for him going forward, because I don't think he's really become the pocket passer that he's going to become. When you're a rookie, and you know this, you're kind of going off instinct, and you 1, 2, 3 and get out, or they did a lot of bubble screens. Well, now he's going to get better going through everything else here. And you mentioned the offensive line. C.J. Stroud struggled his second year because the offensive line wasn't very good. Well, they went out and got Tunsil to play left tackle, to move in Coleman to play left tackle to left guard. All of a sudden, your line is bigger and stronger. That's going to be better for him to stand there and make his throws.
So no sophomore slump for him?
No.
All
he'll be better. He will be better.
That's scary to think about. We're going to stay in the top 50 right now, and that is where we are going to find 6 quarterbacks in the top 50 players. Year 2 of Jim Harbaugh, we're talking about players going on after a rookie season, finding success in the next year. We got year 2 of Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, that connection. Is this kind of the season where he finds himself and that we find success in that program?
Well, he's another guy that has to prove it in the postseason. I mean, he has not had success in the postseason, and he's got to go out and do it. I'm not talking about number-wise. I'm talking about winning, and he's got to go out and play better in the postseason. And until he does, there's always going to be questions about him. You look at those regular season numbers last year. 23-3. I think that needs to get to 30-8 or 30-9. I think they need to throw the ball a little bit more. Ladd McConkey showed in the postseason what he's capable of doing. I think they'll be better throwing the football around. But we know Harbaugh wants to run the ball. That's what his MO is. They need to run the ball better, and then you'll get the big shots down the field. But I think Justin Herbert proved last year he can fit with Jim Harbaugh, and I think it worked.
I think it's a process of them learning each other, what you do best, what plays you like to run, the balance of run pass. Because we were all saying last year, don't expect Justin Herbert to be leading the NFL in passing or touchdown passes, because Jim Harbaugh wants to bring physicality to the game. But I think now that they've established what they're going to do, now that will open up more, and you can grow and be more confident in letting Justin Herbert even have some freedom at the line of scrimmage when you start recognizing things about what the opposing defenses are running, checking out some of those passes, the play action pass, and get you better numbers and better availability down the field. So I think Justin Herbert's going to go. This is pretty high for him because Justin Herbert has always been the potential guy, and he's shown flashes, but it is about doing it in the playoffs, getting it done at the next level, and I think he will too.
Okay, so only one quarterback that we've discussed so far has won a Super Bowl. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes on that list, and then the best player on that list, he is #1 overall. But we've arrived to what could be maybe the biggest snub. I'm interested to hear Danny's take on this. Jalen Hurts, 52nd overall, #7 when it comes to your quarterbacks. Do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I would even, I don't have any problem with where Jalen Hurts is. Yeah, because I do think wins are not a stat, right? I mean, that's just, in Super Bowl, championships are not a stat. They're incredible, and it is how we judge legacies, and it is oftentimes how they're used in here. But he is in a system that is incredibly advantageous to to putting him in a great position. He's had great offensive line play. He's got 2 true #1 receivers on the outside. They've had a great running game, one of the best running backs in the league in Saquon, who's in that conversation, a defense which has played really well. And it shouldn't be a knock against Jalen Hurts, but I do wonder if you plugged him in some other systems, would he even be in the conversation of top 10 quarterbacks? I don't think so. A lot of it goes about what the upside is, but if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, or if you're Jalen Hurts, you're saying, I don't really care about that. Let me just keep stacking up these MVPs, or excuse me, the Super Bowl trophies, and then we'll see, how my legacy shakes out in the end. Because I love what he brings. He's perfect for what they want to do. I just don't think he has that elite skill set that some other quarterbacks, even ranked behind him, do.
No, but what he does do is he shows up in the moments.
Yeah.
And he shows up in the playoffs. And
A
he
lot
shows
of the
up
guys
in the
that we
big
were
games.
talking
And
about
there's a
have
lot of
not done
guys
that.
who haven't.
Yeah.
And so you got to give him credit for that. But 52nd highest ranked player in the national.
53rd last year.
But still, I mean,
he went up a little spot.
I mean,
That's right.
Win a
Huge
Super Bowl
jump.
here.
again, okay, you look at where his offensive line, the top 2 offensive linemen in my rankings are both from the Philadelphia Eagles. They're the 2 tackles. The left guard is on the list. I mean, A.J. Brown is on the list. They are loaded. Saquon Barkley is high on the list. So the offense is loaded. He's a big part of it. Don't get me wrong. I think his threat to pull the ball and run helps create the offense. It helps open up the offense. It helps make it easier on those guys. So he is a really good NFL quarterback. And at 52nd in the league, I think that's a pretty fair ranking for Jalen Hurts.
So what more do you want to see from him then?
Well, let's go back to last season when he was in the regular season. He wasn't great in the regular season last year. He was okay. He was pretty good. He wasn't great. He just happens to turn it on in the moments. And you deserve high praise for doing that because there's a lot of guys who can't do it. I just think that the next step for him, throwing the ball better on a consistent basis, and where he's at. And look, there's going to be games where he's going to have to throw the ball better, and I think he's done it in the postseason, but in the regular season, he's going to have to do it as well.
I just don't view him as an elite level passer or an elite level runner. Like, he's not elite at one of them. He's really good at both of them, and I think in order for him to like justify where he is, you've got to have both of those be in the elite category.
And by the way, I've already gotten tons of trouble with the Philadelphia Eagle fans.
Oh, I'm sure.
Hurts. Not on this one, on one I did earlier, so I'm sure they're going to come at me on this one.
Well, it just went live on CBS Sports.com.
Well, there you go.
So,
Perfect.
so
There
get
you go.
ready for that. And something else that also went live, you do have a profile piece on our next guy, and that's Baker Mayfield. How did he go from just being talked about as a bust to now you calling them one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league? What did he show you?
Well, what he did was he found a home.
Yeah.
And you know, look, people forget how good he was the first year in Cleveland. And before he got hurt in Cleveland, he was a good quarterback. And he was putting up good numbers. And they gave up on him because the owner wanted to go get Deshaun Watson in one of the worst moves in the history of the National Football League, if not the worst move in the NFL. So they gave up on him. Then he's out there. And then you start wondering. And he told me, he said, I start wondering about myself a little bit. This is a guy that plays with a swagger and a confidence. He goes to the Rams. He arrives that week, plays well, picks up the offense, likes it, loves those guys, and then they go to Tampa. And by the way, Tampa told me they signed him on a one-year deal because they weren't sure about him. And so he goes and plays his butt off, and now he's coming off a really impressive 41 touchdown passes, and I think he's comfortable. And that's the biggest thing about him is comfort with the offense. Now, it's a new coordinator. It's not a new system. It's a new coordinator. But so he'll adjust to that. But every year it's the same thing for him.
And I think some people think that it's really easy to call the same plays, but Liam Cohen had a great feel for what he wanted to do. It is sort of more of an art form. It's not like playing a video game where you just punch them up. You got to know why you're running those plays. We'll see how that transition goes. But I agree with you. I think this is why when we talk about quarterbacks coming out of the NFL draft, where fit, system, culture, it all matters so much because look at Baker, and I agree with you. His rookie year was phenomenal. Didn't he set a rookie record for touchdown passes? You know, he had a ton of success there, but it just wasn't a great fit. You talk about a culture where quarterbacks go to die, that is Cleveland. So now, and then he had to take the really long road there, and I'm sure it was a big test of his confidence and his belief in himself, but he never wavered, kept going to work, and earned the respect of his teammates, and also helps to have some pretty good weapons on the outside. Mike Evans has been a great target for him, and I also think it was huge that he signed the contract that he did, which allowed him to keep Mike Evans and some of those pieces of the puzzle around him. So I think he's absolutely one of those guys where every quarterback's journey is different. He took a little bit of a longer path, but I think he's right where he's supposed to be.
By the way, that contract's soon to become an issue in Tampa, by the way. If he plays like he did last year, he's one of the lowest paid starting quarterbacks in the NFL. It's kind of outdated already. And you look around the league and Brock Purdy's getting what he's getting and other guys are getting what they're getting. I can promise you that's going to be an issue next year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And every starter's back on offense. And they had the wide receiver, Ibuka, from Ohio State. They're going to be pretty darn good this year.
I can't wait to watch it all play out. We got 3 quarterbacks left to get into the top 100 of Pete Prisco's list. So last year, Pete had Jared Goff ranked 76th. This year, 77th. Basically the same. What's the ceiling for Goff, Danny?
Super Bowl champion. Like, I mean, I think that's what you want to do because he's a guy that I think is, again, another underrated quarterback. He was cast aside from the Rams after he couldn't get it done there, but he fits exactly what Detroit wants to do. Now he's going to be another guy who's going to have to learn a new offensive coordinator, with Ben Johnson leaving to Chicago. That'll be a sort of a work in progress, but he is sort of your quintessential play action, stand in the pocket, big guy who's not going to kill you with his legs, but he makes the great decisions and he does exactly what they want him to.
90th overall, 10th best quarterback. We have Dak Prescott next on your list. The injuries obviously plagued his season last year, but you still have him in the top 100. If he is healthy, what can he do with this Cowboys squad?
Well, I think getting Pickens will really help him a great deal. The offensive line, I love what they've done on the offensive line. They're young, but they're going to be good up front. They'll protect them, and I think that's the key. You know, he kind of, when you look at the Cowboys offense last year, everything went through Lamb, and it still will go through Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's a great player, but you needed help on the other side. They get it with Pickens. As long as he's not complaining about not getting the football, they're going to be good on offense. You remember a couple of years ago, Dak Prescott led the NFL in touchdown passes.
Yep.
I think this is going to be one of those seasons where people look at it and they go, you know what, this guy's better than we thought he was.
He's judged harshly because of the star on his helmet. There's always an expectation that you've got to be one of the best in the league, and that standard is so high. That's where I think this is where Dak brings a ton, is the leadership. And that was the big deal with the Steelers with George Pickens is, you know, people are complaining, who's the leader? Who's stepping up here? There is no doubt, unequivocally, Dak Prescott is the leader of this team. I think he's going to take George Pickens under his wing, talk to him throughout the season. If he gets a game, he doesn't catch many balls, he's going to explain why, he's going to try to keep him happy. And I think if he does that, he could be right towards the top of the league again.
Last year, you said the best is yet to come for Jordan Love. I think we're still all waiting to see exactly what that is, but what did you see specifically from him that kept him in your top 100?
Well, I think what last year was an injury-plagued season, and he played like it. And there were times where you looked at him and you go, he's just not healthy. Even when after he missed time, remember he missed a little time, he came back, and he just didn't look like the same guy. I do think that this is a guy that this year is going to take the next step. You know, we always talk about the receivers. Do they have a #1 wide receiver? Well, I think going out and adding Golden in the draft is big for them. It might give them the #1 wide receiver. Christian Watson's coming off an injury. Dobbs has been bothered by concussions. So there are questions about the receiver group. The offensive line's good. I think this is a moment for him to come back, step back in, and remind everybody why. I think, dare I say it? I say it every year. I think the Packers are one of those teams to beat in the league this year. I really do.
Dare I say it? I'm going to say it. All right, so I'm going to keep saying it. So we went through 11 quarterbacks who are in Pete's top 100, but that means there are definitely some snubs, guys who did not make the cut. Just some notable ones: C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, Matthew Stafford. Two of the list does go on and on. So, Danny, any notables here that you feel like should have been ranked in that top 100?
Matthew Stafford, I would probably swap out maybe and put him in the top 10 of quarterbacks. But I think Aaron Rodgers is way too low when you look at him. And Stafford, I get his age becomes an issue, but he really had a resurgence last year. It's kind of, if they can keep him healthy, and you know, he can clearly lead that team to a Super Bowl. But Aaron Rodgers, I think, is too low, especially from what we saw on the back end of last year. I think he's going to have a resurgence this year.
I had him way up high last year, and I took a lot of grief for that, and he didn't play to it early in the season. But you're right, he played much better in the second part of the season. I just wonder about how the fit is with Pittsburgh. You know, what's their identity in Pittsburgh? They want to run the ball, play good defense, and so he's kind of a supplement to what they want to do.
I think a lot of people want to know what's going to happen in Pittsburgh. Pete, you got your phone on you?
Yeah.
You ready to get all this hate that's about to come your way?
It's coming.
Well, I appreciate you being here, kind of walking us through your top 100 list when it comes to the quarterbacks. We are going to have much more to come on this list on CBS. We have 3 p.m. on HQ, the players in the top 100 and contract disputes. Spotlight, we're going to talk about the biggest snubs. With the first pick, I mean, everyone is going to be dissecting your list over the next few weeks. So get ready, Pete Prisco.
I'm ready.